You're live.
Okay, great. Welcome, everyone. You are with H&D Abroad.
I'm Herman.
I'm Dee, and welcome to our our live today, where we're talking all things finance. So we are together today and hosting our first collaboration. But first, we wanted to introduce ourselves.
Again, I'm Herman, and this is my beautiful wife, Dee.
Yeah, and on H&D Abroad, we talk about our journey. We have not left the United States, and we haven't chosen a destination, but we are sharing with you our journey as we do our research and define more about what that is. We are sharing our scouting trips along the way so that you get a sense of that. And then always, we are learning and collaborating with community and inviting community to share in our journey, including you in our journey. So if those kinds of things, community, research, scouting trips, as you're considering moving abroad or just moving in general, we invite you to join us on our channel. So
Yes, please subscribe. Please subscribe. Please subscribe. And
yeah,
please
we
like this video at the end, and always hit that notification bell because we want to make sure that you get all the videos we put out as we walk along this journey.
absolutely, we go live every Saturday, 1 o'clock Central Standard Time. So I wanted we're going to bring Rick and Halisi with Our Black Utopia. Hopefully that works well,
I'll do that
right?
again. So,
Okay. Hi,
Hey,
y'all.
everybody.
Yay, great.
how you doing? Thank you for patiently working through our learning process. We are so glad to have Rick and Halisi from Our Black Utopia with us. So good to see you guys. It's been a while.
It's been a
Yes.
minute.
So Rick and Halisi are, we've kind of taken them on as our mentors. First, as just really being part of their early community, watching their live videos, but also we joined in deeper connection with them with their financial challenge, which we will definitely talk about as a part of our live today. So I want to thank those who are joining. If you are joining us live, please say hello in the comments. If you are joining us in the future, just give us a shout, give us a hi in the comments as well. So Rick and Halisi are our mentors because they have made the leap. They are
Yes.
in the country of their desire. And so, you know, I know that it's important, and I've used this process, whether it's career wise or just, you know, people who are living their best marital, healthy marital life together. Having mentors is super important because you want to hear those backstories. You want to you want to hear what went well. What are the lessons learned that could help me to create that shorthand in parenting, shorthand in, you know, making those money moves, like Rick and Halisi have. So their story was really powerful for us. But I think what I think has been important on our journey and what we want to make visible on our channel is that being a got to consider more than one perspective.
Mhm.
And so my husband wasn't resistant, but it's been a sell to on this move abroad journey. So we appreciate seeing other couples talk about that, and that's why we've invited Ric and Halisi to join us. So I wanted to give you guys a chance, introduce yourselves, introduce our Black Utopia as we get started.
Great. Hey, everyone. My name's Halisi.
And I'm Ric, and we are
Our Black Utopia. And just really, really quickly, for those of you who don't know, we live in Lisbon, Portugal. We've lived here for about 4 months now. We took our first scouting trip in June. But equally as important, we had to get our financial act together before we made this move. And, we were getting close to retirement age and our money looked crazy. So we got our together. Yes. And went from negative 22,000 over 800,000 in net worth. And there were some things that we had to learn along the way, and things that we've learned that are necessary to do before you make that move abroad. And I'm going to tell you, Herman and Dee, we, if you would have talked to us 4 years ago, there's no way we would have thought that we could be living in Portugal or in Europe, outside the United States at this point in our lives.
Yeah, you could take a vacation, but that was about it.
That was about it.
And you had to spend a whole lot of money to take a vacation.
Yeah. So if we can do it, anyone can do it. And I really recommend, if you have not considered moving abroad, that you consider it, because privilege is real, y'all. And it's time for us to get some privilege up in here.
Yeah, it truly is. And we took kind of a bigger leap. So we got residency in Mexico also. So
yes,
we wanted to expand our horizon and not just choose one, but choose two. And we did it.
Yeah, it's a good choice.
So we have a permanent residency in Mexico, and we are waiting on our residency for Portugal.
Oh, we've got residency.
We're
waiting for our green card.
Our green cards.
Excellent. That's what makes it wonderful. That's a part of our follow.
Yes, and that the power of the blue passport, the privilege of the blue passport. We never really considered. We considered it for travel, but it's now a central part of our financial journey to having a life that is fulfilling, not at retirement age. And that was a real game changer. So I wanted to kind of see if we could get in the weeds around, our financial journey. If you kind of think back to your early years, I think one of your first videos that I saw you all produce was, kind of things you learned, things you learned from your parents, from your upbringing, from your early community, that might not have been really effective at helping you understand finances. And, Herman and I were thinking about what were some of the lessons we learned of our parents.
Our parents, but amazingly enough, both of our fathers, especially, but our parents in general, are financial geniuses. They, regardless how much money they made the system work for them, and they both came from pretty poor backgrounds. So both of our fathers are Southern boys, Mississippians and Georgia. And they turned that into, my father has traveled to every continent except Antarctica on a minister's salary, a low minister's salary. And her father he set them up for life.
Yeah.
And but some of those things, because they took care of it,
were unsaid.
And I think we missed some of those things. So when we started challenge that we didn't realize we had till we were
up against a wall.
Yeah, with our backs against the wall. So we'd like to hear how individually you all looked at finances. Maybe individually tell us a little bit of each of your stories and how you looked at finances, before you became a couple?
Well, I always looked at it as, my father and my mother both worked, but it was always, she would turn her paycheck over. She didn't deal with any of the bills or anything like that.
Mhm.
My father dealt with all of that. Why, you know, I guess that was the times at the time. That was the times.
Mhm.
And we were never included as kids and growing up, even in teen years, we weren't included on financial matters or discussions or anything like that. It was just get a job, get an education, go to school, get a good job. And, we weren't even told to save our money.
Mm.
We were just told to get a good job and you'll be okay.
Right.
Mm.
So, of course,
Mhm.
it was we lived in Ohio, so we lived in a kind of a small city in Ohio, if you will.
Not a city, town.
She calls it a town. I call it a city. It was very small. Steubenville, Ohio, and and my father did do if he did anything right, he got us out of Steubenville, Ohio, and moved us. So we moved to California from that
Mhm.
point. And my father,
Oh,
he
wow.
was a pretty smart guy, but he just kind of doubted himself. He just didn't have the thing that would push him further and further to where he needed to be. But I mean, he knew a lot of stuff. He was self taught in a lot of things.
Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
my mother just, she ended up being the housewife that worked, but, everything went to dad and he'd pay everything. And it was like, well, mom, what about your savings? What about savings for this? But she really wasn't familiar with it either. At least she didn't share that stuff with us because it was like, kids are to be seen and
Mhm.
not heard or whatever the saying
Mhm.
was.
Mhm.
So it was, I don't think my mother even had a credit card until she was in her 60s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Credit was not
and I
Yeah.
mean, I
not
had
a part
plenty
of
by
it.
then, but yeah. So, it was just, like I said, I don't know if it was the day and age or whatever that they didn't share that. I know I grew up with people that did. I had uncles that would buy new cars every year. They worked in the mills and they made a
Mm.
decent wage and stuff, but that was the
Mhm.
thing. Get a new Buick every year. And it's like, but they never
Mhm.
discuss any type of finances or stocks and bonds and savings, nothing with kids. Nothing. So
Mhm.
pretty much you were on your
Mhm.
own.
Yeah. It's interesting because I was listening to your stories and the fact that your parents grew up not in the South, but in the deep South.
Yeah.
And my
Mhm.
parents were raised in Southern California, and I was born and raised in LA.
Mm.
And I think, when you grow up knowing that everything is stacked against you and the man is
Mhm.
out to get you, maybe you are smarter about things because my parents were
Mhm.
overly optimistic, overly
Mhm.
optimistic. And it did
Mhm.
not help that, like my uncle, my grandfather's brother, was a DJ in LA and all this money was coming in back in the day when radio was big and even my grandfather, owned a bar in San Diego and all of this stuff. It was like easy money.
Mhm.
And because we were in Southern California, the Black community had to stick together back in them days, right? And
Mhm.
so it wasn't hard to get folks at your bar because they wasn't going across town to the white folks' bar. They weren't
Yeah.
allowed, right?
Mhm.
And so I think they were overly optimistic. And my mom and dad were television producers. They ended up being television producers, and they made a boatload of money and they have
Mhm.
absolutely nothing to show for it.
Right.
Nothing to
Right.
show for it. And so the one thing that they did right was let me know how much money they were making. So I knew, at least for the time, how much it was going to take to live the kind of life we lived. Um,
That's
Back in the
important.
day, they had savings. but divorce is something else. And, and I think, I think my mom never got over my dad. I know she didn't. What do you think?
No,
Nah.
she didn't.
And so after that, even though she was still in the television industry, still bringing in money, things just kind of went downhill. And my father was never good with money. My mom handled that. If it was left up to him, when it was left up to him, like I remember when we first moved back to LA, she gave him the check to send for the car payment. And it was in his pocket for so long that they repossessed the car.
Wow.
Yes. And so it's not like they didn't have them. Like, so my dad has always been bad with money, and it's just like, we're okay. So he's very, very smart.
Very smart.
And he was an engineer, and then he was a television producer, right? All this stuff, but the bills weren't getting paid. And the same thing, like when they bought their first house in LA, they still own the house in San Diego. They let my maternal grandparents move into that. And so they took care of that mortgage. And then my parents bought a house in LA. And it's a good thing that it closed when it did, because my dad walked around with the rent check. And now my mom didn't learn from the repossessed car. No, she did not. So he walked around with the rent check in his pocket the day we were moving into our house, because there's that gap, right? Your lease ends at on the 30th, but maybe the house closed on the 20th or something like that. There was a cease and desist. You getting kicked out of these apartments. And my mom's like, "What is going on?" Oh,
Wow.
it went through the laundry and everything else. So, and then as far as like investing and 401ks, my mom, she worked for the company that did Good Times and All in the Family and all that stuff. So Norman Lear Productions, and she owned stock, which she stupidly cashed out, paid that tax burden, spent all her 401k, and then never built that back up. So the only lessons I had was make a lot of money if you want to live at least this well, and pay your bills on time. Those were the lessons. And that was it. Like putting money in a 401k and at least put up to the match, which is never good enough, y'all. It is not good enough. But at least put it, if they go up to 6% and match, you at least do that because you're leaving money on the table. I figured that out. That was like, duh. And so I remember the point where I had more money in savings than my parents had. I remember that point, and it did not take long. Because my parents were so flaky. I did not like being dependent upon anybody. Like my mom already proved that I could not depend on her. And she'd get hot and kick me out and all this other stuff. And I'm like, I'll show you. I made my own money, and then I ain't got to listen to blah 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 whoop de woo, right? But these are the isms that we have to deal with in life, right? I remember the night I was going away to college freshman year, and she hadn't done her taxes. So I had to claim, independent. I said, you can't claim me on your taxes anymore. I'm claiming independent. This is the days you could do that. I'm filling out my own FAFSA, my own financial aid, and all of that stuff in order to register. And because I kept waiting for her to do her taxes, it was late. College starts in August. And so I hadn't heard, and it was time to go. And I said, well, Mom, I need $800 to register. And she said, do you have it? And I said, no, I don't have it all. And she said, well, I guess you ain't going then, huh? Aren't you the one who said I had to go to college? She is apologizing for all that stuff, but it was those lessons, or they were those lessons that made me realize that I had to figure this stuff out. And then, like, I remember my aunt told me, okay, so if you ain't got enough money in your checking account, you can write a check on Wednesday. And then if you get paid Friday,
Ma'am,
you be good to go.
ma'am,
You be good to go.
those were the good old days, ma'am.
That happened. That happened all the way up through. That happened all the way up through us having children. So yes, when they stopped
that check,
allowing
you
us
get
to float the check at the Walmart,
I
we were in
mean,
trouble.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, just goofy stuff. Like, and here's the thing: I never made so little money. Now, this is a blessing. After college, I never made so little money that I had more month than money. If I only paid for the necessities, rent, utilities, transportation, in those days, most companies, your healthcare, you didn't have to pay anything to it, and some food, there was still more money left over, unless I wanted that Coach bag or them high heel shoes that, whatever. There was always more money left over than month. And still she's teaching me basically how to spend money that I don't have.
Mhm. Get what you
I see
want,
a
get
lot
what
of
you need. Yeah, it's get
yeah.
what you want.
Figure
Pretty
it out
much
later.
not so much what you need, but get what you want, figure it out later, or just make that minimum payment. You'll be okay.
Yeah.
Not stopping to think that minimum payment is nothing but make it go longer and longer and longer. And credit card companies love that. They love you for that. I mean, even today, credit card companies look at us. They don't like us too much because we pay it off
Yeah.
in the month. Pay everything off when it's due. But, it's like if you let it go longer, I mean, even now today, what they say is, well, because I got an email today from our Chase card saying, well, you can pay payments on that one. That one qualifies to make payments on instead of paying the whole thing off. It's like, delete, delete. I don't need that email. The money's there. Take the money and go, no, I'm not signing up to make payments on anything.
Yeah. I see so many similarities in the story of people of color in the stories that you just shared. Talking about our fathers coming from the South, which meant they were here in their fist. They held that money. That money was with them everywhere. They weren't struggling for money.
Or grandparents put it under the mattress.
Yeah.
That was safest because they did not trust the banking
banks.
system.
Yeah, my mother came from a more safe environment, and so they had resources at whim, and so they had to get in. My parents had to get into the practice of coming from two different financial backgrounds to find the middle place of how they understood money together. Then those parents made life really comfortable for us, not unnecessarily. I mean, I didn't have just everything.
Yeah.
We had to earn it, but but again, it was go to school. I want to work from a teenager. It was go to school. So when I began working, I didn't know where to put my money. My money was a Slack account, like it had a back. You can understand why I overseas, because I never did what before I was sending it.
I it was whatever money, once you spent what you had to spend, what you wanted to spend, whatever was left was your sole purpose for it. There wasn't a goal. It was just whatever is left. And, as we think today about money moves to make, before moving abroad, I heard something that you all mentioned, and that was communication. There wasn't really a conversation in our house about, I never communicated then, but the bills would come in, my dad would sit at the table and he would pay the bills. I remember a couple of times when he said, I'm going to have you sit here and I'm going to have you write the check so that you have an awareness of what are we paying for the mortgage? What are we paying for the water bills? That you have but
That's
there
good.
wasn't really any teaching behind it. And we had to move abroad, but there were some real broken things that we realized had to be repaired before we could even consider moving abroad as a reality for us. So the silence around money couldn't happen anymore.
Right.
The not sitting down together to talk about what is our debt, what is our monthly payment, how much money do we have coming in. Those were real serious conversations we had to have. And we took moving abroad off. Climb was too high.
I wanted to make sure that I didn't see what I saw with a lot of other families. A husband pass away and the wife have no sense of how to take care of it. Of
Right?
course, I don't have that problem with Tamika. She is far more, she is actually the money person in this couple. I have learned how to be a better steward from her example. That's been important to me so that I'm not left if she would have passed away and I don't know how to take care of the house. So,
Right.
but it was before we got married, I lived alone. I apartment. I had to pay some bills. And even though there was still a lot to learn, I was able to say, okay, I figured some things out. I know the process forward. And I dug in, it's important to me. But there's where only one of them takes care of the finances. And the other person is, they drop the check. There are even husbands who come home and put here's the money. And they don't know that the wife is spending all the money. We watch the horror stories on Dave Ramsey, the guy saying, how come the bill isn't paid? Because he's coming home and putting down the check and the wife is spending the money at the local whatever and hiding stuff in the closet.
We called it robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Oh,
yes.
And we robbed Peter blind at the beginning of our marriage. We robbed him blind. So I guess that leads me to the next question then. What with grounds and histories, with those individual experiences, you now have become a couple. You're a new couple and you're moving into a relationship together. How did you take those experiences and integrate them into your marriage? And how did that affect it starting out?
I think so. One thing, you guys are breaking up a little bit, and I don't know if it's on our end or if you're breaking up in general. Are you guys using Wi-Fi or are you wired in? And hi, Greta. Let us know in the comments if it's just us and maybe we need to do something, or if everybody's seeing a little bit of break. So, but getting back to your question,
and I'm not sure because we delay. Well, you all are slightly delayed in your responses. So I'm not sure.
Okay. And it could be on our end, though we are wired in. Well, we are because the Wi-Fi is off.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is not our first marriage. Okay, Greta says you guys are breaking up a bit. This is not our first marriage. And so I kind of came in with the I finally found someone who's worth fighting for, and I'm not going to fight with him about money, because they say most couples break up because of money, right? And so like I previous marriage, my son's father was very, 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 very controlling about the money, and that just didn't work for me. That did not work for me. The one thing that I can say about my son's dad that I appreciate and took with me was being very meticulous about seeing where the money went. And so that was lesson number one for me, is seeing where the money goes. And so you're never caught off guard, because bouncing checks used to be a way of life for me. Bounce back, because I'm writing them, right? And then on Friday, when I get paid, hopefully the check ain't come in yet and all of that. So I stopped all of that. And after my first marriage, and got my act together as far as at least being responsible and not overspending in a way that hurt my credit. But yeah, I think the main thing for me was not arguing over money. So what did that look like? That meant whenever Ric spent money on stupid stuff, I wouldn't say anything. I would not say anything.
Which wasn't often.
But we made a pact that if we were going to spend money over a certain amount, that we would talk to each other first.
Yeah, if we were going to spend money, if we were going
what was the limit? 100 or?
If it was over $100, we'd talk about it.
Yeah.
If somebody wanted to borrow money, if someone approached one of us and said, "Hey, can you loan me?" Blah blah blah. We had,
if it was over 100,
it's like I need to talk to my wife, and it PO'd a lot of people, because it's like, well, you got to talk to your wife to go, kids and everything else. It's like, yeah, because we don't spend or loan out. First of all, we're not loaning money out just to loan money out.
Never get it back.
And we always give that option. Okay, you asked me for $100. I got $100 that I can give you. All right, spare, loan, whatever you want to call it. Are you going to pay me this back? Or am I giving you a loan? And I need to know that answer. And if they say, yeah, it's just a loan, it's like, okay, so you said you're going to pay me back. If you don't, you can never borrow a penny from me again. Never.
Nor get a penny, because you should have just taken it as a gift.
Yeah,
but
take it as a gift for a
your
loan.
little ego wouldn't let you do that.
Yeah. But in my case, in my marriage, my first one, previous, I had the person that would write a check
all day long.
All day long. Didn't care. Well, we get paid on such. You get paid on such and such and such. And it got so bad. It got so bad. She could no longer have a checking account in the state. So I had the checking account.
Wow.
She would go to the credit union and tell them, try to talk them into giving them counter checks off of my account, because they said you can't have any checks. You can't even have a checking account in this bank. You can have a savings account. Somehow she got a hold of a check, signed it, and I had to go to check writing school because she was writing bad checks without me even knowing it. And there was my name on the check because I had to take her name off the checks. She was forging my signature, and I had to go to check writing school behind it. And it's like, okay, this is insane, because you can't just keep spending money like this. And thank God I ran into a smart woman that,
Yeah, this is years later.
Yeah, this is years later, but it's.
And here's the crazy part. She was writing checks, buying stuff for other people.
Yeah.
Not even buying stuff for the home, or for herself. Most of the time, she was giving stuff away.
Yeah, because she wanted them to be her friend.
Wow.
These are the isms that we have to deal with, and really analyzing what our relationship is with money and the interconnectedness on how we feel about ourselves, what we have been told both in the church and outside of the church about money. Right? And how that affects the way we handle money today. Yeah.
Somebody said, KB is saying,
we got
what is check writing school?
What is check writing school? Just like when you get too many tickets and you have to go to, you get too many driving violations or whatever, and you got to go to driving school or traffic school, as they call it in Cali. same thing.
In KB, they actually give you a diploma once you passed it, which I had to go. I went through it. It was like a weekend, and I went through the whole thing. And the instructor said, "Who feels that they don't belong here?" And I raised my hand, and and he said, "Why do you think you don't belong here?" And I said, "Because I didn't write the check." And I, clearly you can see it wasn't my signature, but it's like
the bank shouldn't have cashed it.
Well, why are you here? Why didn't you say so? I said, because it's my wife. And if she got in trouble for writing one more bad check, she was going to jail. She wasn't going to go to check writing school. So I couldn't have that.
With the kids.
So yeah.
Good husband. Unappreciated husband, right?
Yeah, I suffer for that one. But
all's well that ends well.
All's well that ends well.
Yeah, and it's all of those scars that bring us to today, right?
Did it take you a while to integrate together?
Our money, or just in general?
Your thoughts, your processes, just your money, and when you sat down, how soon did you have a conversation about how to integrate your financial styles?
So we bought a house together right away. So that was it, right? Like we bought a house together, and so both of our checks went into one account. And then what we decided to do, because a frugal cousin of mine gave me this idea, is we set an allowance for both of us, and that allowance went automatically out of our checks and into a separate checking account. So he had his own checking account. I had my own checking account with our allowance, which we could spend any way we wanted. And then we had what we called the house account. And so that's the way we've done it for 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've never had issues or, well, you're spending this or you're spending that. No. If we needed to slow down on spending, which we've done, at times, it'd be brought up. We need to slow down on this. We need to slow down on that.
Or when he wants a $5,000 Macintosh.
Yeah, or when I want a $5,000 Macintosh. But what did you tell me?
I said, you better get a project to pay for that Mac.
And what did I do?
He got a video project to pay for that Macintosh.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
So at least we didn't get into debt over it.
Yes,
we could have saved that $5,000.
Right.
But at the time, Macintosh computers were just that expensive. They were just crazy expensive. And you needed that kind of power to do the high power editing that we were doing.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't like I was looking to buy
the questions that the questions around money that I see for people thinking about moving abroad. How much money do I need?
Yeah.
Which makes me think about the whole idea of what does it mean? Can you afford it?
Yeah. So you guys.
Me, what I
go ahead.
What I brought into our marriage was, how many ways can I divide this one check? That's what I could afford.
Okay.
And mine was more so, is it in the bank? So I had a bad concept of that as well. Yeah.
So as you all have structured your life, when you were negative, as you share about your journey, when you all were in the negative, did you see being able to afford moving abroad then, or did it very clear once you started to increase your net worth?
We weren't even considering
We weren't
moving
thinking
abroad.
about it.
We were just, you guys know, we had this devastating meeting with a financial planner. And I say financial planner in quotes because really it was insurance salesman. And that was the start of us looking at our money. And And so at that point, when we were in a negative net worth, we were just trying to figure out if we wanted to start working less, if I wanted Ric to be able to retire and only I work or whatever, how are we going to be able to do that ever? And so the first thing was just get out of debt. Get out of debt. And so that's how our journey started. Our journey didn't start with, we want to move abroad, so what do we need to do? It just started with, I don't want to keep working all of my life. We were over 50. At the time, he was over 60. I don't like the notion that you really want to work until you die, assuming that we get to live to be 80, 90 years old, even maybe 100. And then when do we have fun? Because, America doesn't believe in no vacations. So it really was about how can we get away? We never were living check to check. We always had at least $10,000 in the bank. And that's not a lot of money, but when you consider that the average American is $400 away from a disaster, $10,000 in the bank to me was like, hey, right? So we never, I had this mental thing. We are not going below that number. and we didn't. So, and then, and we never touched our 401ks. We never cashed that out or anything like that. So we weren't totally stupid, but we had so much credit card debt that we were still in the negative,
Right.
even though we never took money out of our home or anything like that. It was that credit card debt. And then you had to add in the student loan debt, because I went to grad school late and stuff like that. So back in those days, it was just about how can we get ahead of the game? How can we create a situation where we don't feel like we're living paycheck to paycheck? We don't feel like if one of us got laid off that it'd be an moment. What the are we going to do, right? Without digging into that $10,000. So that's how it started. The list that we put together for money moves to make before moving abroad would help someone who was like us in general, but it's more specifically about things you really need to think about before moving abroad that you might not have to think about if you stay in the United States. Yeah, but the biggest thing is, the biggest thing is debt and unsecured high interest debt. I'm not talking about a mortgage. I'm not necessarily talking about a car loan, especially if you got one for like 2 or 3% interest or less. Although I think we spend entirely too much on cars. And I'm not necessarily talking about a public school loan, but credit card debt and signature loans and lines of credit.
Oh, yeah.
Even a line of credit against your house, because usually those are like 10% and up. Right. So all of that debt, that's bad. I think a lot of debt is bad, but that debt is extremely bad and has got to go. And it is a sucker. It sucks you in and creates poverty.
It does. When I think about when we came up with this topic, what I want to make sure that people are recognizing is philosophy. Do you from a I deserve it? Because that will never get you to stopping a poor spending behavior. Marriage money moves are honesty and communication.
Correct.
That I can trust Herman to do the things that we need, and that I'm willing to be in lockstep. So having that, having a game plan, and we're moving together honestly, that is those it's not just the things that need to be done, like paying off debt, but it's also the movements within your that have to line up with that.
Right.
Um, and then and then once you are getting momentum, staying connected with those
Mhm.
goals, because what it sounds like is there was one thing you all were interested, retirement, that then what does retirement look like, and then how we rolled back our time rolled into we got to get our money together.
Yeah.
In tandem with not only with I have the right, I deserve it, is also another trigger might be how restrictive a relationship is, one partner or the other, or the couple. We don't spend anything, we don't buy anything, and that creates, even if not with that couple, sometimes with vendors, because I didn't get a chance to do.
Right.
And
Right.
you do all the words. There has to be that allowance that says, hey, those who put away their charity 10% or whatever, and you put away your save percent, whatever. But there ought to be a little something to say, hey, I deserve a pair of socks this week. I deserve a new book, something that I can buy that says I did something for me. That takes a little of that. You give a child a cookie so that he's not in there stealing all the cookies. Cookies
Right.
aren't bad. You can have a cookie instead of, no, we don't have cookies till Saturday. And then, now you've got an overweight child because they're sneaking and stealing stuff, and so there has to be a balance between the I spend everything and I don't spend anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
But
I mean,
oh, I'm sorry.
with
No, I was gonna.
with the challenge.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Rick.
No, I was going to say a lot. A lot of people's things that stop them in their tracks is that thing of, I deserve this. I work hard. I work, 60 hours a week, and I deserve to go out and buy me a brand new car without thinking about
Tomorrow.
tomorrow and how long are you going to drive that car? Why are you buying a brand new car? Why are you buying a certain type of car? You're buying it because you look good, and you want to hear what
Mhm.
everybody else has to say about it. Oh man, I like that Tesla you got, man. That is tight. I wish, must be nice, which we've said too. And then you realize
Yeah.
how, when you stop and think, how you should think is, how long am I going to be driving that car? Where am I going to drive that car? How much time do I spend in that car? How much time does that car spend in the garage? And who's helping me make the payment? Because all those people that say, "Yeah, Herman,
Hey,
that Tesla's tight, bruh. I like that Tesla. I wish I had one." They ain't helping you pay for it.
Not only that, it's
not
like,
one
not one bit,
dime.
right? You can, I love what Paula Pan says, that you can afford anything, just not everything. And so I think it's really important that couples get on the same page about what their long-term goals are. And once we had that meeting and once we decided what we wanted our tomorrows to look like, then, and we had already been putting, as Herman, you were saying, we were already giving ourselves an allowance, and we together decided what that was going to be per paycheck. And so we knew that, every paycheck, this amount of money was going to go into my account. And it was enough to buy, a very nice pair of shoes every other week if I wanted to.
Yeah.
Or what have you. All of that kind of stuff was supposed to come out of there. If I wanted to get a cheap haircut or expensive haircut or a facial or not, and all of that stuff. Yeah, we set money aside to do the things, a little bit of pampering here and there, because I did grow up when my parents said absolutely no candy except for on Halloween, Christmas, and Easter. Yeah, I wasn't an overweight child, but I was stealing and sneaking candy. I remember when I got caught, I was so stupid. I took you know how they had the candy down there at kid level, right? So I took one of the candy kisses and I didn't know what to do with it. So I put it in my mouth with the foil on it. And then we get to the car and my mom's like, "What you got in your mouth?" "Mom, I can't eat it because the foil's on it. And of course, she marched me right back into that store, and I had to take it out and I'm sorry and this and that. And she gave them the 2 cents or whatever for the candy, and then she threw it away because I wasn't allowed to have candy. So yes, total abstinence does not work.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't work. But once you
Right.
as a couple get on the same page and decide and take the time to visualize really what you want your tomorrows to look like, then you've got something. You put the picture of that on the wall. You get your vision board. You do what you need to do. You guys who are in the Fire Over 50 Facebook group, you saw our vision board. We had a vision board last year, and it came to pass. Most of the things, except for the exercise, but most of the things on there came to pass. We were on the same page, and so all of a sudden, that Tesla, that's cool for you if that's what makes you happy. But for us, we going to Portugal, y'all, right? Like that mink coat looks nice.
Mhm.
It's beautiful. If that's what brings you joy, lovely. We can't afford a Tesla and a mink coat and Portugal. That's just the truth. And that's okay. Right? Like that's okay. The notion that in order to be Black excellence, in order to be, the Claire Huxtable and the Huxtables, right? We gotta dress this way, we gotta look this way, we gotta have this kind of house and have these kind of cars and all of this nonsense wrapped up. And what is that really wrapped up in? It's really wrapped up, in my opinion, on getting acceptance by the majority, getting acceptance from white folks. Let's be real.
Mhm.
Let's be
Mhm.
real. Identity politics, respectability politics, all of that stuff
And
is wrapped up in.
to
Go ahead.
our
One more time. What'd you say?
Mhm.
I missed what you said, Dee.
Into family, we've made it.
Yes.
That right there, the Jeffersons, right?
Moving on up.
The Jeffersons.
Family, proving to family that we've made it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so I think, now more than ever, there is an opportunity to redefine what success looks like, just between you and God, just between your partners and God, whether you're single or married, right? Like there is an opportunity to redefine that. And as long as you are living a life that brings you joy, I could not really care less what anybody else says. And it's interesting because I think it was our last live, where someone asked, or maybe the one before that, oh, you guys are on this fire journey. Don't you have to sacrifice everything? Or aren't you set? Do you feel like you're sacrificing a lot?
Yeah.
And, it depends on what you want, right? Like if what you want are minks and Teslas, then I suppose we are sacrificing. But if you want is the freedom to work or not work, the freedom to wake up when you want to, the freedom to bounce around Europe, then no, we're not sacrificing anything, not anything. And what did we wake up today at 10 o'clock, 10:30? I mean,
You did. I think I woke up at 11.
Oh, see, there you go. Yeah, we don't feel like we're sacrificing anything. And so I think, the biggest takeaway that we learned is that there's got to be a gap between how much money you have coming in and how much you're spending. And you always want to be increasing that gap so that your tomorrows can really truly look like you want them to look.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree with Greta in the chat that consumerism
It's killing Black
is
people.
is
Yeah.
driving us away from freedom.
Yeah.
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 And how much fighting did we do to be free?
Absolutely. So
Share with
could,
us. Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, I was going to say that Herman and I are going to wanted you all to share about the Fire Over 50 Facebook group,
And your financial
Oh,
challenge.
and when you are thinking about the next financial challenge that helped us to think about what we need to do before moving abroad.
yeah, definitely. So I think, we've got 5 things that we want you guys to think about before you move abroad. And I'm just going to read those off really quickly. And then we'll talk about Fire Over 50. If you guys don't know what FIRE is, we learned it from Christina and Aman of Our Rich Journey. Got to give them a shout out. And it's financial independence, retire early. And so if you're thinking about moving abroad, there's some things that, like I said, if you were staying in the United States, you wouldn't have to think about. The first thing you want to do is you want to research the city and country that you are moving to, right? And figure out how much it's going to cost to live there. And come up with a monthly budget of what your expenses are
Yes.
and everything else. The next thing is,
You want to pay off your debt.
yes.
You want to pay off debt.
Pay off that
especially credit
debt.
card.
Yes.
Unsecured debt. You got to get that out the way.
If you've got public student loans, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. We'll talk about that
If you
later.
own a home or something like that, we're not really talking about that. Because
Right.
that can be used as income too.
It can be used as income or you can sell it.
Mhm.
Then you want to save the amount of money. You need a move abroad fund and you need a minimum of 6 months of your expenses. You will only know what your expenses are when you do that research. And then number 4,
Is your income how you will meet your monthly expenses when you're moving over here?
right? So if you think I'm gonna move, and we talked about this last week, like I'm gonna move and I'm gonna do YouTube and I'm gonna be making all this money. How hard is that, Herman and Dee? How hard is it? Right? It's not easy, right? How much money y'all got coming in from YouTube right now?
No.
Exactly.
Yeah, it takes a while.
So if you've got a side hustle that you are depending upon for your income, give yourself enough ramp up time and be pretty close to, if not over, the amount of money that you need every month. I mean, even, we've been doing this for 9 months now. And if we're making, if YouTube ad revenue is bringing in like $300 to $400 a month, that it's, hey, I'm not spitting at it. That's lovely, but can't nobody live off of $300 or $400 a month.
If you're moving a business that you have in the United States over here, you have to think and know about the tax implications.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be tax implications.
Yeah. Not Mexico, but a lot of other countries.
A lot of other countries. Yes.
Yeah. And then you need to figure out how you're going to access your money. People don't think about this. So it's expensive to move money, right? If you use TransferWise, or they call themselves Wise right now, it's expensive. You have to think about wire fees. You have to think about the exchange rate, right? And so right now, the exchange rate, we're 8% in the deficit. So if we have $10,000 in the bank, really, it's only worth €9,200.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, right? So you got
Place matters.
exactly. You've got to take all of that into consideration. And then the bonus, so that's the 5 things that you need to do, right? Research and come up with a budget, pay off your debt, save your move abroad fund and your living expenses, figure out your income,
Go on.
and your plan to access money. Then we've got a bonus.
Before the bonus.
Okay.
So you got to also realize too, in some countries, depending on where you want to go, because a lot of people say, well, can I open a local bank account and just dump a lot of money into that? Some countries don't want to do that with. Portugal, it depends on their banking systems and what they're about, and pretty much how more the value of their currency is over the United States. The euro, it's safe. What do they use? Pounds in England? It's safe. Mexico, we're not putting a whole lot of money in the Mexican bank. We're just not.
And also, how stable their government is, and if they insure the bank accounts, right?
Yes.
So if they insure it, that's great. but can you count on it? Is their government stable enough for you to count on it?
Yeah,
Right.
because FDIC is not everywhere. There's some countries that have something like an FDIC, but still, you want to know exactly how strong it is and
Yeah.
what it will do for you.
And then lastly, get all of the credit cards that you plan to have while you're at home in the United States. A lot of banks will not mail a credit card out of the country. And when I say we use credit cards as tools, y'all, we're not talking about accumulating new debt overseas. What we're talking about is charging stuff so we can get the points and then paying that off every month. So we're still staying within budget on the credit cards and then paying that off every month and then accumulating those points so we can travel more. So that's the bonus, with a caveat that before you leave, you should freeze
your credit.
Yep, freeze your credit. You don't want to be trouncing around in these international streets and people are at home opening up stuff with your social security number or whatever.
And to freeze your credit is not hard to do.
Yeah.
It's not hard to do, and it's free.
Yeah. You just have to contact each one, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, and give them all of the information. And so we talk about this and other things regarding financial independence in our Facebook Fire Over 50 group. Y'all, it's for folks of the diaspora. You don't have to be over 50, but you have to be of the diaspora. And the reason why we say that is because, just like we've been talking about today, there's certain isms that African Americans, that people from the African diaspora, we all have in common, having been oppressed all over the globe, right? And there's certain isms that come with that. And I don't want to have to explain to folks about that stuff. I just don't. And I think we should be able to talk about it without having to defend why we feel the way we feel. Because we all know, we all have mama and big mama and them and all of that, and we get it. And so we do a financial education class. Actually, I'm not sure we're going to do the challenge again, Herman and Dee. It was a lot of information for a week, wasn't it? And so that was the first time we had done it in that short amount of time.
Oh, yes, ma'am, it was. Yes.
So we are probably, it's called Beyond the Bling, and that's the umbrella for our financial education money mindset makeover. We're probably going to be offering a self-paced financial education package with a couple of group coaching sessions. And then we will do a 6-month Beyond the Bling, 1 module per month, 1 group coaching session per month, and with an option of a one-on-one session as well with us. And so I know some of the folks who took it, they said this is a game changer. And I was happy that, because it was a lot. It was a lot for us. So I know it was a lot for y'all to do. Boom, boom, boom in 6 days. Well, 7, including the pre-work. But you guys, we are going to let you, for all of you guys who are watching, who are in the challenge, and to tell you, Herman and Dee, that you will have access at least for another month. So I know tomorrow was the last day that I told you. So you will have access if you need to go back and look at the materials, look at the videos and all of that. Because it was like, 10 videos and about 40 pages worth of workbook stuff. And it was no joke.
Yeah, you got to. What I know is you have to put in the work to get the results.
Yeah.
Greta had a question. You have a moment?
Sure.
Yeah.
If you're living on your 401k, is it better to take for the year, quarterly, or twice a year?
Okay, so there are 2 questions in that, in my opinion. One is, are you taking out the money and sending it abroad for you to live off of? So there's that piece. So let's just talk about taking money out of your 401k period. I think it's better to take it out quarterly. Reason being is that leaves more money in there to grow. And if you've got your expenses to the point where from January to March, I need whatever, $10,000, right? Take the $10,000 out, leave the other $30,000 in there growing. Now, with the stock market doing what it's doing, it depends on how much money you have in your 401k, right?
Yes.
And so if the less you have, the harder this becomes.
Right.
And that's why, investing is a long game. If you've had money in there for 10 years growing, then you should be okay. If you're still new at you only had it in there for a few years and you're starting to withdraw, that's going to be a little tougher. The other thing that I would consider is what the exchange rate is if you are sending that money out of the country. So for us, we look at what the dollar is to the euro. And when it looks like the dollar is going up in comparison to the euro, I'm on it. Like, all right, let's move a chunk of money so we have more money, and we're not having an 8% hit. Maybe we're only having a 4% hit on the money. There was a time when I should have moved more, when the dollar was stronger than the euro. I thought I was going to keep. See, that's why you don't try to be, like a crystal ball person in the market. Because I should have moved more. And the next time, and now I know the next time we get closer and it's like 99 cents, 98 cents to the euro, or $1.02 to €1, y'all, I'm moving a chunk. I'm moving like 6 months worth of money. The only thing is interest-bearing accounts. So it's that hurts a little bit when you have savings in a high interest account.
Yeah.
We don't move any money out of our investments account, not 401ks, not our IRAs or our brokerage account. It's all in a high yield account. And we're getting like $300 and $400 a month in interest. Now, once we move it, that stops. I don't even know if our bank has a high. I'll look, because maybe they do. Maybe I could be moving it into a high interest account here. But the interest rates haven't climbed here like they are at home.
No.
Not at home, in the United States. We're home now.
Hey.
We look forward to saying that too.
Yes.
Yeah, we look forward to having
Thank
you.
you. And we will see you all when we come to Morocco. We're coming to the meetup, so we look forward to seeing you all in person. We want to say thank you to everyone that joined us live today.
Thank you for continued patience with our growing process. We're really learning through this, and we really was glad that you all joined us, both Ric and Halisi, and everyone who came through today. We want to encourage you all to subscribe to us. We are still
we are excited. We are fast.
Absolutely.
So we learned something important.
We learned something today.
And next week about strategies, 7 strategies that you can start practicing today to get ready for your move abroad. So thanks everyone. Have a good rest. Bye-bye everyone.
Before you all go.
Greta's so sweet. Look at her.